it is it's the initiative of these. They're I think it's 5 one-shot books. I think is what it said.
Yeah.
The initiative being, what if we took these ideas from pop culture, these literary characters, like in this case James Bond, and we told them from a perspective of somebody who is not a white person.
That's right.
And what would that look like? And not just in a way where it's just we're just swapping out, white James Bond with black James Bond and everything else is the same. It's just they
Right.
happen to be. But like, what does it really look like from that perspective? How would people interact with him in a real world scenario kind of thing?
Yeah.
And so they went from this kind of just discussion. That's what this whole black part of the comic.
Yeah,
is,
the
that
mission
we see on
statement here.
screen.
I don't know if you can read it, but
But they were like, let's just publish it.
Yeah, so they're going to do 5 one-shots. The first one we're going to talk about right now, The Manchurian, is about a Chinese James Bond. But there'll be others about a Muslim John Constantine, a family of werewolves with East African descent, an Evil Dead for black nerds,
Love
and
that.
a reverse Indiana Jones, which I have no idea what that means.
I don't either. I'm like, what does that mean? Is it?
It means they're stealing from the museums and giving it back to the people.
Okay, that makes sense.
So this one is by Pornsack Pisha Show. I believe that's how you say that. Apologies if it's not. With art by Terry Dodson, inks by Rachel Dodson, and letters by Jeff Powell. So I am very excited. But so this is just the Chinese James Bond. There's really not a lot to the synopsis. Jeff, what did you think about this book?
I loved it. I can see where people, like, it was scary in the way that they kind of unveil how Chinese spy tactics work a little bit, where they're like Western spies just go and they'll send 1 or 2 people to go and get the job done. But they're like Chinese spies, they'll just send a whole bunch of people over to get tiny little bits of information, send all that information back to China, and then they'll put it together almost like a jigsaw puzzle to get the whole whatever. And they kind of break down how they're doing it. The story itself is about how one of these, as they call it, a grain of sand, just kind of tries to do a little bit more than what they're being asked to do and almost gets caught, whatever. And so the Chinese James Bond has to go in and this character has to go in and clean things up. It is interesting how they're all one shots, but they definitely set them up in case any of these things pop off, where they're like, oh, we can keep going with this. But I really enjoyed it. It's it's just a great all around spy comic, just from the jump. And you can tell that it is different from like other spy comics, because it isn't like he's on this big one person mission and only he can do it. He's just trying to keep everything in line with how things are supposed to work. And then there's people above him also who also have their own little tiny little things that they need to do, and he has to kind of work within that framework and whatnot.
Very compromised, but
great artwork.
I mean, it doesn't get any more James Bond than this, which is a really fun way to kind of ease the audience into like, oh yeah, that's the shot of Bond getting out of the water and getting with the girl. But then that's where kind of they branch off. But Josh, what did you think about The Manchurian?
So I liked it. I love this entire concept. I love the idea that each of these one shots is kind of a pilot, and they're kind of like testing the water. I do love the idea of just, like you said, Jeff, it's not just, or Danny, I'm sorry, not just inverting the idea, but kind of really taking it to heart. My issue is this. I really enjoyed it, but then I got to the sneak preview of the next one and fell absolutely in love so much that it kind of diluted my impression of
You're supposed to stop reading.
No, I kept reading, and I was just so enamored and infatuated with The Sacred Damned.
I'll send it to you. We have it.
Oh, God, because I cannot wait. It looks so good. So that's the Muslim John Constantine.
Yeah.
And again, I don't want to spoil anything, but the thing I love about it is very clearly riffing off of the original first issue of Hellblazer by Jamie Delano. If you think about what happens in that and what happens to a character in this, it's kind of playing off the same I don't want to say idea, but the same kind of horror to a certain degree. So I enjoyed the Manchurian. I thought it was great, but I would maybe argue don't put sneak previews that lengthy for the upcoming review because it just totally took my attention away. So
I agree with Josh, not to get too far into the other comic, and weirdly, specifically because Danny pulled up this page, is that the thing about this comic is that it is so realistic about spy stuff that it can be like, if you're expecting like James Bond high action kind of stuff, you're not really going to get a whole lot of that, because it is kind of like boring spy stuff, but it is also like, it's not about the action, it's about like what the little pieces are doing. So
it's boring in a way that I think when you say boring, you mean like it's not the high action sequences that you would be expecting.
Right, exactly.
More like conversations, and I love how goofy this gets, like with the costumes.
Yeah, like, exactly.
All the fake mustaches. I
feel like he's always wearing like a mustache or something every time he puts on like a costume. There's a sequence where they're speaking in code, and I was just like, how? I mean, obviously it's difficult, but like, how is this even code, or is this just like, yeah, this is what they mean, but like this isn't code. So that was really fun to kind of follow along. And then of course, as this asset, as they call them, kind of gets it starts getting out of hand. The assignment here, and I love that it keeps things very simple, right? When it's a bad guy or something, like they just call it, here's a problem, and then here's another problem. Like it's got these little fun. I think Dotson's actually probably the perfect person to kind of capture that humorous side to this.
Yeah.
Because anybody else would have probably gone a bit of a darker, more spy noir thriller type of thing. But with Dotson, it's all very lighthearted. His character designs are pretty funny. I love that mustache. It's so dumb and goofy. I also really enjoyed it. I actually stopped before reading the other one because But I'll send you guys the other one. I think we have a bunch of them already. So
I will admit I was a little confused going into it because I thought this was one book with a story of each of those. So when I got to that one, I was like, oh, right, this is the next story. And then it just abruptly ended. And I was like, wait, what the fuck? I want to know what happens. So,
So contrary to most books, I actually did read the intro that I put on here because I also wanted to fully understand the assignment of what they were doing with this.
Right.
So there you go. But yeah, highly recommend it. The Manchurian, I think it's going to be worth your time picking up. Any final comments on the Manchurian?
Yeah, I agree. It'll be worth it. All of them seem to be, though. They're going to be that way. They're really going to be great.
We might be talking about these for the next few weeks in the show as we kind of do reviews. So cool.